Harbaugh to the Chargers is a done deal. Sherrone Moore to Michigan feels like a done deal. We'll keep you updated if it's not. But hire internally. I get it. He understands the program. He's helped build it up. Totally get it.
He also won some big games this year, too.
Actually, they basically won the title without Harbaugh.
He won half of their games.
What is the... Okay, first of all, Kevin Clark, one of the great writers of the NFL, tweets out, the Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh are going to win a Super Bowl in the next 4 years.
I'm okay with that.
Do you buy it? Would you buy it or sell it?
I mean, it's so damn hard to win a Super Bowl.
I'm well aware.
But if
I haven't done it.
If I were putting money on it, I would say that he would. I think it's easy to forget. And to your point, maybe the NFL's changed and he's lost his step, but he's won at every level he's been. He's been an elite coach at literally every stop he's ever been at.
For sure.
The 49ers were in the abyss. They had no hope. They had no dreams. Their number one overall pick's career was basically done. And Alex Smith, Mike Singletary was pulling his pants down at halftime. That was as bad as things had been in a long time for the 49ers organization. He came in and they went 13-3 in year one and went to the NFC title game.
It is, to my lifetime, as somebody who understands sports, it's still to my lifetime the single most surprising season of any sports team I've ever cared about.
Go back and look at that roster, too.
They were 7-9 with Troy Smith.
Yes.
And they fired him. They bring in Harbaugh. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Maybe it'll be good in 2 or 3 years.
Year one, right out of the gate.
13-3.
And if Kyle Williams can catch a punt, the Niners go to that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Right? And then
I don't know if they win it, but like they were that close.
And then you went to the Super Bowl the next year, and then you went back to the NFC title game and played basically the Super Bowl in that game against Seattle because those were the two best teams in the NFL that year.
Yep.
That turnaround was remarkable. I don't know if it's going to happen that quickly because Patrick Mahomes is in your division. And as I highlighted in the last segment, there's a lot of cap hell that you got to navigate through. But I think he understands what is most important in winning, and that is play at the line of scrimmage, being physical, establishing a culture. He does that everywhere. The last guy that they hired to be their head coach had 1 year experience being a coordinator. In the COVID NFL season, he was the defensive coordinator for the Rams, and they hired Brandon Staley, who had, like 3 years earlier, was coaching at like James Madison as an outside linebacker coach. That's who they hired.
We liked it, though, in the minute when he goes for it on 4th down. Like there was a moment where we liked Staley.
I like the aggressiveness.
And then he kept charging.
He went too far.
Yeah, he went too charging.
And he clearly was in over his head. He couldn't. Some guys just can't hack it as a head coach, and you can't go to the further end of the spectrum from that to Harbaugh.
You're certainly not wrong in that regard.
The Big Ten thing, though, was fascinating.
And that's what I wanted to get to that before we get to the Blazers here. The Big Ten fallout of all of this, because Ohio State clearly got the memo. We've been dominated by our rival. They just won the title. This is unacceptable. I cannot believe I'm saying that out loud, that their seasons are unacceptable.
11-1 is inexcusable, man.
It's so ridiculous. You have a college football thing you want to get to later, and I think we're kind of hitting at it of just like how unrealistic a lot of this is. They're all in. They are loaded. They are as loaded a roster as you find in the sport.
Yes.
They might come in number 1 for a lot of people. They're definitely a top 3 ranked team for most. After that, is it still Michigan? Like, does Michigan...
I think you give them the benefit of the doubt for a year. See what they do without McCarthy, Corum. A lot of guys are gone. Like, let's see what you can do. But there's an aspect of, I want to see somebody knock them down before I knock them down myself.
Well, because I'm looking at this landscape here. Harbaugh gone. I don't know what Sherrone Moore... I mean, he did win some games, but like, It's one thing to fill in. It's another to like do it year round.
And now you got to replace all that talent.
I don't know what Jedd Fisch at UW will be. Ohio State, Michigan, maybe Jonathan can make Michigan State feisty. I kind of look at this, and you can go check the tape when, all the Pac-10 stuff demise happened. We were doing the show. Mm-hmm. We talked about this, and I have a clip. We used it as a promo, and I'm like, you think you're going to go in there and win? And, like, I've already flipped the opinion and said that was a stupid guy in that moment.
Who was that idiot?
Well, I'm kind of wondering if you're looking at this, all of this pressure on Ryan Day next year, Oregon's coming in. I'm just kind of wondering, is Dan Lanning looking at this conference kind of licking his chops like, it's kind of set up for us right now. This is perfect timing for everything.
I mean, I think if you asked in August what programs intimidate you and scare you that can acquire talent on your level and should be able to go toe-to-toe with you on most years. The list wasn't very long. You were looking at the time Washington because of what they were doing, Lincoln Riley at USC, who's also coming to the conference, Ohio State, Michigan are definitely in that, and then Penn State. I mean, those were your five that you kind of, maybe you get an Iowa, maybe there's a Wisconsin, to your point, maybe there's a Michigan State, but year in and year out, acquiring talent and winning at a high level.
Same teams.
Those are the only five that did any sort of scaring to me. You've now, at least for a short term, cross Washington off that list. Maybe they get back, but that's going to be a total overhaul.
There's a pause there for sure.
There's a pause. Maybe in 2-3 years they're back, but there's cross them off the list for now. And we'll see. Maybe in August or September and October, we will look at Michigan without Jim Harbaugh and no J.J. McCarthy and all the guys they're replacing. They get off to a rough start. They have a brutal schedule next year, too, by the way.
Their portal window just opened with this Harbaugh departure, too. They get 30 days, the team does. The kids can choose to stay and play for Sherrone Moore, or they can depart and see what's out there on the NIL market.
And I think there's a decent chance that Michigan takes a step back. Now, I'm not going to predict it. I'm not saying you knock them down yet, but I think there's a chance that happens. And so if that's the case for Oregon, they get Texas in non-conference. So you have to play the Longhorns. You play USC. You go to Washington in October. They have to play Michigan State. We'll see how good they are. They play Oregon in November.
Michigan State's not going to be ready this year.
Probably not. And then you get Ohio State at the end of the year. I mean, that's a much more difficult schedule next year than what they were dealing with the last 2 years, playing literally nobody in non-conference, starting with Texas in week 2. And if that is the case, that's a huge boost for Oregon, man, and eventually Washington if they could get their stuff together, because you're eliminating some of these threats, and there will probably more dominoes to fall in the years to come.
Quickly on this, you mentioned a team, and it's hilarious that you said this, and my brain went, oh, yeah. There's really no noise or anybody talking about USC.
No.
The Lincoln Riley thing, he had one down year, and it was just like, all right, we're out.
Caleb Williams is gone. Your defense sucked. Prove me wrong.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly a fair thing to say when we look at it that way, but I'm not even trying to say that USC is going to shock the world this year and win the Big Ten. It's funny when we talk about this, you said USC, and I was, oh yeah, they still have Lincoln Riley there.
What about Ohio State too? Oh wait, I am not scared of Bill O'Brien at all. I think the Ducks are going to handle that offense.
Here's my only thing, Bill O'Brien.
I don't know. The offense isn't what you got to be worried about with Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State's defense.
It's their defense.
They got all those D linemen back, man.
I know.
And they added Caleb Downs, who is the best player in the portal. That defense is loaded.
So you're not wrong, but everybody knows that. They're selling this Ryan Day hiring Bill O'Brien as like, the offense is going to be remade. No.
Well, they had one of the better quarterbacks in the portal transfer over. I think Will Howard is a really good quarterback. I think he's being kind of disrespected in some of these portal transfer rankings. He's going to have weapons, and I don't know. Everybody can feel a way about Bill O'Brien. He has this remarkable thing where he coached for Belichick for like 7 years, and he coached for Saban for 2, and he didn't win a title in any of those runs. Can you imagine doing that? You coached with Belichick and Saban.
You didn't get a single ring.
And you didn't get one ring out of any of that.
You missed all the winning.
It's a devastating moment. I don't think most people love Bill O'Brien. I'm not actually thinking that's where the worry is. I think the worry would be what they're doing with Hartline, O'Brien, and Ryan Day going in with all that pressure.
Yeah, to me, it was Ohio State a couple of years ago realizing that they're not good enough at the line of scrimmage and they need to get better. When Oregon went in and ran all over them with Anthony Brown, I think that was a wake-up call of like, wait, what? They should have lost to Fresno State. That Oregon team could have been 6-6. They weren't even that good. And they collapsed late in the season. That was an embarrassing loss, and I think ever since then, they have reshaped what the roster looks like. Now, we all judge it because they haven't been able to beat Michigan, but they are elite at the line of scrimmage now in a way that they haven't been maybe in a long time, where they were win games, with C.J. Stroud, or go back, even further, Haskins or whoever it might be. They'd win games 56-38. You're like, hey, look at that. Ohio State's great. Now they're winning games 31-10. And it's like, hey, what's wrong with Ohio State? They're just not as explosive offensively, but if they're going to play that level of defense, they don't have to be.
Well, and the other part is, I think they upgraded at quarterback quite a bit. So I think that offense, it may not go back to 56-7 or something, but 31-10 might become 41-10.
Sure.
And that might only be 10 points, but that's a big difference. I think when you have a competent quarterback, that's kind of the difference you will see with them.
He's a good runner too, and that could be a different dynamic than McCord, not the quickest guy in the world.
The after effects of Harbaugh leaving the Big Ten is a fascinating one. We'll have the next 30 days with Michigan players. We'll see what happens with that.
They're all just running from Lanning, man. DeBoer doesn't want to face him. He's too scared.
He
Jim
went
Harbaugh wants out.
Can you say somebody's scared if they ran
terrified.
to face Georgia every time?
Terrified.
Okay, all
Absolutely
right.
terrified.
I love that.
He doesn't want to face Georgia of the West. He wants to face Georgia of the East.